In this section, all your hard work bears fruit. You'll be able to output the sprites for your animations, and I'll also show you how to automate the rendering of an animation, all the frames for each of 8 different angles using the nonlinear animation editor. You'll be able to do something like, for example, here, these are all the sprites rendered at 8 different angles being used inside of Flash. And you can do this for, whatever platform you want. Let's render out some sprites. Let's look at it from the side and hit Control-Alt-0. So we have the camera move to R position. Select the camera. Go to the camera context and let's make it orthographic. Then come back here and let's make the resolution 256 by 256 at 100%. You can render these whatever size you want. I'm doing a nice base 2 friendly number, and I'm doing it large because it'll look better for this tutorial. And also, if you're going to a high resolution device, you may use sprites this big, like the Retina screens. So then we have to make this fit within these bounds. With an orthographic camera, it doesn't matter how close the camera is, it's always going to be this size. So in order to make the bounds bigger, we have to change the orthographic scale. And I want to have the camera be lined up right on the x-axis. So I'm going to do Shift-S, cursor to center, and then period, so that we're transforming from the 3D cursor. Scale on the Y, 0, enter. I'll hit 0 again and see if this guy... Oh look, we added some keyframes. We still have the auto keyframing on, so I'm just going to delete those and go to the dope sheet. Sure enough, we have other things that have been auto keyframed. I'm going to delete those. I'll show our armature again. That looks fine. I'm going to select it so I can see the keyframes down on the timeline. That looks good. Switch to the action editor. Let's go to the punch action. We get very close, but that's good. Still good, he's still inside. And then we should test the idle action. I'm sure it's fine, but it's always good to triple check. And notice these ones with 0, those are the ones we just got rid of, so they have 0 users. When we save and leave Blender and come back, those will be gone. Idle action looks fine. So now let's go over and render. Let's do a, you know what, let's start with the run and do a test render. View all. Let's make sure we're viewing at 100%. We were doing stuff with the freestyle renderer earlier. Let's just turn it off for now. Alright, that looks good, but we want to make sure that we have alpha around this guy. So we'll do RGBA, and under shading, make sure we set the alpha to transparent. Otherwise it's using the sky color, this gray. That's what we're seeing here. Let's do another test render. There we go. The checkers mean it's alpha. And lastly, let's tell it where to save the files. Let's do / so it's relative to the blend file. I'm going to say create an images folder. If the folder exists, it'll use it. If it doesn't exist, it'll create it. And I'm going to prefix all the file names with run and say that they'll have 2 digits for the numbers. So 2 digits, we only have 20 frames. 2 digits would be 00 and 99. So that's fine. And let's render out the animation. You can see the action up here. And then go over to where your files are. That looks good. Pop it open. Looks nice. Come back to Blender. Let's go back to the dope sheet. We're in the action editor. We're going to switch it out with, let's go ahead and render the idle action because it has 20 frames also. And then, before you click the button, let's change this to idle, the prefix. Animate that. Great. Come back here, we've got all our idle animations. And lastly, let's hit escape and switch over to our punch action. Now it's only 11, and we do want it to end on that keyframe. And again, make sure we change the prefix so we don't overwrite our files. Great. And there we have our punches. Say you want to create an effect where the character's not just running just from the side point of view, but you can see it from several fixed angles, like the old game from Bungie, Myth, where it was kind of 3D, but it was using 2D sprites, and it was at like 8 different angles. So you need the complete animation for each angle rendered. I have a little example of, like for example, this here, if I hit the arrow keys, depending on which point of view I'm looking from, I can see all of the frames of animation. To create that effect, we're going to have the camera moving around this character and rendering, like for example, if we're doing the run, you'll have to render all 20 frames, then move, all 20 frames, move, and so on. To do that, we're going to, here, let's minimize that, split our window, middle mouse button drag so we can switch our window type over to the nonlinear animation window. And I'm going to click this snowflake, and then I'm going to expand the properties, and I'm going to say I want this to repeat 8 times. If we scroll out, that should end us around 161. So starting at 1, we're going to want to create the camera action. I need more room. Let's go look down from the top, select the camera, and then I'm going to say I to insert a keyframe for location and rotation. And I want the lights to follow with the camera, so I'm going to parent those, select the lights, make sure the camera's the last thing selected, Control P, parent them. So then we'll jump up 20 frames, shift up arrow twice, rotate 45 degrees, enter, and then keyframe, location, rotation, up another 20 frames, rotate 45 degrees, enter, keyframe. And the other thing is, we want, when this camera moves, we don't want it just spinning around there. We want it to stay in one spot until it jumps to its next keyframe, which means we want it to move, use linear, not linear, constant interpolation. So now when we scrub, watch the camera. It doesn't bump over until it hits the keyframe. And the last frame of our movie is, let's see, there we go, on 161. And I'm going to create a new folder to render all these in. So this is going to be our all run. And the files I'll still prefix with run. And then animate. It'll take a little while since we're doing 160 frames. Except that we're not doing 160 frames because I didn't set the end to 1. And when we use the NLA, it deals with the overlap of the frame, the last frame. It's kind of neat watching this moving along. So it knows that this is 21 frames, but it does the overlap. So it's 20 frames times 8. Oh, that looks cool. It's nice to see there on that frame. It was animating there for a minute. There we go. Great. Let's do a save as.